Okay, well, I was oppressed socially throughout my childhood, and anytime I had a medical issue, it was never a rational discourse. It was always aggression.
Okay.
And so now as an adult, speaking with my doctors at the VA, I have a really difficult time engaging them. One doctor challenged something I said about my ribs and threw the floating ribs in my face. And the first thought that came to my mind was, I know that Adam and Eve, or Eve was born because of a rib that Adam shared with her. That was the first thought in my head. Not irrational. I understand that there's floating ribs, and I've studied medicine, which is also true. I couldn't believe it. In my own mind, I felt that. That's what came up.
I have a question.
Even though I know, yeah.
You said your doctor challenged you on something about your ribs, and then you said floating rib? I don't know what you're talking about.
The detached ribs at the bottom of your rib cage, I have damage to mine, and it's very difficult to breathe sometimes.
Oh, okay.
And I was trying to explain that to my doctor, and she was pissed off because I wasn't abiding by the schedule rules of the VA and going through the channels, the proper channels. I was trying to open discourse, and it was a cross paths, and a dead end. Does that make any sense?
The reason he's bringing it up is because he's thinking about the indoctrination wherein he still thinks about his ribs.
I got that.
All right.
And it upset me to know that, because I'm a rational person and I don't just jump to emotional defense of myself, and I don't just, but I was being aggressed upon emotionally, and that's what came surface in my subconscious mind. I didn't say it.
A side question about the ribs, because this pops into my head so first of all, when you talk about ribs, I also think of Adam and Eve, but in a slightly different way now, because when I yell at people, because let's be honest, I was fucking yelling a minute ago. When I yell at people to read some other book other than the Bible and to explore actual science, there's a prime example with the Adam and Eve story that has stuck in my mind for 20 some odd years at least. Because like many people, I was taught that men have one more rib than women. And when you think about it, even if you don't believe the Bible literally, you could hear that.
Isn't it the other way around, though?
You could hear. No, it's not. Okay.
I thought.
No, hang on.
Sorry.
You could hear something about there being a difference in the number of ribs that men and women have, and even as a secularist, you could say, "Oh, that explains why they wrote this story of God taking a rib from Adam and making Eve, because that explains the fact that we have a different number of ribs." The problem is we don't have a different number of ribs. We're humans. There's not something about an XX chromosome or XY or anything else. It changes the number. And the funny thing is, you can actually count them on your own. You can touch yourself, and maybe you can find somebody else that will let you touch them. But if not, you can go to a museum and look at the skeletons. And you could look at every episode of CSI where they're trying to figure out whether or not the victim that's been in a barrel for 30 years is a male or a female. They don't count ribs.
No.
They look at the pelvic bone. They look at things like that are morphologically different. And yet countless people, even people still today, have still bought into this notion that either men or women, no matter which direction you want to go, depending on how you heard the story, one of them's got more ribs than the other. And nobody bothers to check. It's just like, isn't God wonderful? Isn't God wonderful? He took one of Adam's ribs, and now we all have proof right here. I can look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And wouldn't that make Eve a clone?
Ooh.
Yeah. But a magical clone. So with magical clones, you can do whatever you want. It also means that Jesus must have been female, because that would essentially be parthenogenesis of Mary becoming pregnant without, actually having intercourse.
What do you think about Jesus being twins?
Okay, I feel like we have gone down a really weird path.
Yeah.
Let's just.
But it's better than slavery.
I know I got you, Matt. You wanted.
So how can we actually help, Drake? Yeah. You wanted.
What's that?
You wanted to talk about cults. And you wanted to talk about deprogramming from cults. Was it more about just kind of getting away from indoctrination that you kind of, it seems like instead of talking about cults, you really wanted to talk about indoctrination.
Perhaps. Maybe I was just really excited about calling you guys and flying on the energy pattern of it.
That's all right. So I would love to share just a little bit about that with you if you'd like, if it helps.
Please, I'm a good listener.
I can tell. Drake, when it comes to getting through indoctrination, it can take a lifetime. And it's something that we all who've gone through this have to try and get our way through. I've talked to people here at the ACA who come in who say that they've walked away from their church, but they still have hell dreams for years. This is a post-traumatic stress. When you're telling children that they're going to suffer in pain and torment, it fucking sticks with you, dude.
Yeah, or even worse when you tell them that they can't do anything about the evils of the world when there are very simple things you can do.
I mean, that
discourse.
Yeah, and it's something that people really don't recognize that never were in the church.
Resolution.
And when you weren't in the church, you don't know what it's like being a teenager and hating yourself for having sexual urges and trying to talk to and have other people be accountable because you are suffering from your sin and it's going to send you to hell.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare trying to be chaste when you're going through
puberty.
Urges.
It's horrendous, and what it does is it weaponizes shame. If you want to talk about indoctrination, then I want to, if anything, get out on the board that you are not suffering alone. That it's something that all of us are going through to some degree, and that we're doing our best. But when we're having this fight, it's not just about slavery. That's a big one. There are lots of things, but we're also trying to create a world where we're not sticking that pain on the next generation.
By the way, Drake,
it's not fair.
Would you be my servant under the rules in Exodus 21?
Oh, sweet
Stop.
Jesus!
Hell
Stop.
no. And I would never invite anybody else to be my servant either. And
exactly. I'm
such a gentle person that when someone says I'm hurting them, I instantly second guess my own behavior instead of turning on them and saying, "Oh, you're full of it."
This is the reason I asked the question. It wasn't just to do a callback. It wasn't to get me all riled up. It was because I suspected that you would respond immediately with no. And the reason this point is important for you is what Eric was talking about. Shame and indoctrination specifically is what gets to people to the point where they are willing to sacrifice their own humanity in deference to a book that they know to be immoral. And no matter how much you feel you're dealing with the indoctrination and the shame and guilt and all these other things, you are already in a better position than some other people because you are recognizing that you need to decide what your boundaries are and that you're not going to be a victim to indoctrination and shame. You answered quickly and easily to an obvious question. And yet people who are indoctrinated the same way you were will hem and haw and make excuses. So I just wanted you to know you're already in a better position than many of the other people who've been indoctrinated, and that there is a way out and that there is a way that things can get better. Eric and I were both indoctrinated. I would have made all kinds of excuses at some point for almost anything bad in the Bible, and now I don't.
And when we look back at that, I was just talking about feeling cringe earlier for doing something in my childhood, but I look forward and I talk to these people who tell me that they're ashamed that they haven't moved past their trauma soon enough, as if that's something that you have to get over right away.
They take forever.
No, we're fucking humans. It can take a lifetime, and that's not something to be ashamed of, and you are making progress towards it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one other thing, I'm sorry, but I'm looking in the live chat, and something really pissed me off. So I've got to get it out, and that is, oh, well, Eric was trying to say something nice, and then he painted a hellish picture, so now it's not nice. No, it's not nice. But it's better to face what reality is.
Yeah.
Yes, it's better to face the reality than live a lie. And that's why we're here. And no, it doesn't help when you paint a rosy picture of the what we have to go through. It's better to actually recognize it and see that in each other so that we can get through it than have to deal with that shit feeling like you're alone.
We live in a culture that's...
Oppressing it and suppressing it, not even communicating about it, that's not the right path to go.
Yeah, we live in a culture that stigmatizes and shames people for mental health issues.
Yes, I know.
People don't tend to stigmatize me or shame me for athlete's
mental
foot or diabetes. But we do it.
When you're sad, that's mental health, right?
Well, I mean, I've talked about my mental health issues.
The study of human beings.
Yeah. I've talked about my mental health issues on the show and on my show on Talk Heathen, and I've gotten emails that day. Well, that's why you're an atheist. Your brain is broken. There's something fundamentally wrong with you. You need God. That'll heal you. And
that's horrible.
It's horrible from this end.
And what's
but for those of us who've come from it, they actually feel like that's the right thing to do. They're trying what they think is the best. They're using the tools that they think. The thing is, they're bringing leeches instead of medicine. Yeah. We actually have to fucking update our tools.
This is the thing that I was talking about earlier.
Culture or not mental health
if
medicine.
Right. And they have this notion, and by the way, it's not just mental health issues. Oh, you're not sick, you're sad. Well, bite me. But the other aspect of this is that we're just barely beyond the stage where people are blaming demons for it. And we're not too far beyond it, because I have relatives who, when somebody gets cancer or has something bad happen to them, that's God punishing them. That's Satan trying to exploit them for doing the right thing for Jesus. It goes absolutely both ways. The entire world is wrapped in this notion that there's a spiritual warfare going on. And so when something bad happens to you, either you deserved it or Satan is coming after you because you're doing the right thing for Jesus. And if you have mental health problems, you should just put your big boy or big girl panties on and get over it, because that's not a real illness. This is the type of world that we're living in. And when Hitchens wrote Religion Poisons Everything,
yes,
that was only barely hyperbole. And the only reason it's barely hyperbole is because we managed to keep religion out of a couple of things. Maybe a couple of things. And it's only because
we're not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, we have to be vigilant. You can lose everything to where this foundational idea of a God and religion and supernatural takes over everything.
Oh, yeah. I have tried to focus my life and be a productive human being and shoot for the stars. And every time I do, and I come near my family, I just get totally dragged right down into it, and I end up becoming a silent, obedient, still person who doesn't have any energy whatsoever. And it frightens me to be trapped in that over and over and over again. Yeah. To never be allowed to have my own free will and speak my own consciousness, face issues, genuinely face them, and resolve them. You know,
I tell you,
everything is actually easier to resolve than people make it out to be.
The call screener
conflict is so easy.
The call screener's got you listed as a theist, and I normally we would dig in on that, and I'm not going to. What I'm going to say is, no matter where you are in your beliefs or anything else, you might want to look into the Secular Therapist Project. Even as a theist, or even as somebody who's perhaps not secular, there's still absolutely nothing wrong with getting a secular therapist, because at least then you're getting sound scientific treatment without the mumbo jumbo of somebody else's religious views. That is something that would be, actually worth looking into.
I'll definitely do that.
Hey,
cool.
If
go ahead.
Yeah. No, if there's anything to take away from this that I can give, it's that I'm seeing people who are feeling less alone in the live chat right now from this conversation. So if you want to know if you are doing something good, then maybe having this conversation
on listeners.
We,
I should say, not I.
Well, we are, because we should be talking about it. And
I want to thank you so much. There's so many things that you've given me, so many phrases and expressions that you've given me that I can be armed to defend myself with, that I couldn't come up with or rationalize on my own, and that's been very helpful.
I want to throw one last wrench. I want to throw one last wrench into this before we send you off, because we've got two more callers to get to. Okay. When you say the words "defend yourself," I have an involuntary reaction, and I just want to make it clear, you don't have to defend yourself to anybody ever. Nobody owes anybody else an explanation for who they are, what they think, or anything else. It is that very mentality that is part of the indoctrination, part of the you are less than, part of the you are inferior, that you owe somebody an explanation for who you are, whether it be LGBTQ, whether it be Christian, atheist, whatever, whether it be a Red Sox fan. You don't owe anybody an explanation for shit. And anybody who's going to try to put the onus on you to defend yourself, cut them from your life if they don't stop.
Yeah, that's something that I've been relatively successful at doing, ending relationships really easily. But there are some key relationships, the close ones.
I'm pretty good at ending relationships too, but